Affordable housing isn't just a McPherson story, it's a Kansas story. From McPherson County to communities across the state, safe, stable homes are essential for thriving families. At the McPherson Housing Coalition, we're developing emergency shelters like the Oak Harbor Cottages and building permanent supportive homes through projects such as Sutherland Estates, creating housing that includes wraparound care and services. If you believe every Kansan deserves a place to call home, your support matters, whether you're in McPherson or miles away. Learn how you can help listeners and neighbors across Kansas by visiting McPhersonHousingCoalition.org.
Welcome to Housing for Good, a podcast dedicated to housing topics and issues affecting our communities in McPherson County and beyond. With years of experience and expertise, hosts Chris Goodson and Karolyn Moore discuss housing challenges and opportunities with other experts from a variety of housing fields.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Housing for Good. I'm Karolyn.
And I'm Chris.
All right, Chris, what do you have for news today?
Well, I think you probably want to talk a little bit about Brush Up Mac.
I do.
And I had a news article that Joey found for us. So we have listeners in Australia, so we thought it would be kind of interesting to say what's going on in Australia. You know, sometimes we think in America that we have more problems than anybody else. But according to this article, that these families have been waiting to get into public housing for 10 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And part of the problem is that in this particular article, it's in the Northern Territory urban area. And so what's happening is some of the housing is in such bad condition that it's not livable. So instead of addressing that and figuring out, you know, what can we do? Can we come in and repair these homes? Some of the photos here were just horrible. And the one lady was saying, well, you know, I may not live long enough to get into this housing. So she's been waiting over 10 years to get into housing. So I just bring that up because it lets people know that it's worldwide, this housing shortage, trying to figure out what you're doing and finding solutions is an international issue. Anyways, it was from Alice Springs residents waiting 10 years for public housing while homes sit vacant. So if any of you are out there and you want to look this article up, it's really interesting. I just briefly mentioned it just because I know that they're having issues, like we're having issues. And so that's all I have. I just thought it was an interesting thing if you want to read that.
Okay, very good. And yes, I do want to talk about Brush Up Mac. So we are currently taking applications from homeowners that need minor stuff done to their house. And then we will have somebody come along and do some pictures, and we'll talk with our volunteers and find out if they have the capacity, the talent to do what the homeowner's wanting. And so you can pick up an application right now at the Senior Center or at the Chamber, or you can go to McPhersonHousingCoalition.org and find one there to print off. If you fill it out on site, on the website, it comes to me as an email. So that's the quickest way to get it to us. So
yeah, and if you can't do it, let somebody know. We'll help you with the application. I have somebody I need to call back, and I said, hey, when I have some time, I'll call you back and I'll help you through that application. Because some of our people are, this one lady that I'm going to be helping, she's 89 years old, and you know, she's getting to the point in her life that things are getting a little more difficult. She can't read as well. She's not driving, and so I'm like, you know, I could probably call her. And plus, I like her, and I won't say her name on the radio, on the show or whatever. But anyways, I've known her for many years. So
okay,
all right. So welcome back. This is our Housing for Good. It's just been a really fun and interesting podcast. But what I will say is that happens to me regularly, and probably to Karolyn, is people are always wanting to figure out, how did you do it? How did you build the Sutherland Estates? How did you build the Oak Harbor? And we do a lot of public speaking. We meet with people individually, and I'm like, oh my gosh, can we just do a podcast on it and say, hey, why don't you go listen to the podcast?
Yeah, there you go.
So this is going to be we're going to do episode 1, and then in another week we'll do episode 2 of how to do this, or just kind of give you the basics. We're not going to give you all of our trade secrets, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to give you enough information that we hope that it'll maybe answer some of the questions that you have about how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. So a lot of communities, they already have nonprofits, churches, and city programs that are doing really important work, but they don't always know how to take the next step into actually creating housing.
Yeah, that's exactly where projects like the Oak Harbor Cottages and later Southern Estates came from for us. We weren't starting from scratch, and that's the huge thing about this. I have people coming to me, and they don't have any of the things that they need to try to make this work. I mean, we all have great ideas, but you need to have some kind of a good foundation. Do you have an organization? Does it meet the right criteria? Do you have somebody who's willing to do the financial portion of it? Do you have all these different things? And so I think I would say that if you are somebody that you have this passion and you really believe it's what you're supposed to do, or you have a group of people, you've got to start from the beginning. You can't jump ahead.
Yeah.
Start the organization and build something that'll be sustainable from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a number of people come to us and they have really great ideas about what they want to do, but they're like by themselves. And so today we're going to talk about how the vision forms, how it becomes viable, and what it really takes to move from idea to construction.
So for us, the vision didn't start with a building design. It started with families who kept showing up needing help and nowhere stable to send them. There wasn't really nothing that we could do for these families. And we knew that we had this huge problem, and we're like, how are we going to address it? So that's really where it started. But again, we already had McPherson Housing Coalition. We were already established. So this wasn't like the first step. This was like 50 steps down the road after we already had experience and education and relationships and all of those things before we started.
So we were seeing people living in their cars in motels, doubled up with relatives, and cycling through short-term fixes.
Yeah, and when you're doing prevention and emergency services long enough, you start to see patterns. You realize this isn't just about one bad month. It's about the lack of housing options. People didn't have anywhere to go. We had nowhere for these people to go.
Yep, exactly. And so the project really came out of service gaps.
Yeah, the question becomes, what's missing in our community's housing system, and can we fill that gap? So you need to look in your own community, what's missing? Do you have enough? Maybe you have a lot of low-income housing. I don't know who has that, or maybe you have more permanent, or maybe you have this, or maybe you have that. But you got to figure out what the gap is. And is somebody already doing it? Because if somebody's doing it, then work with them.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about those gaps, I know one thing that Chris and I always have a conversation about is you have somebody that has a problem, and it's like, okay, can we get that need met? If that answer is no, that is a gap. So another big piece that projects work best when you already have the right mix of skills on your team.
And you have to understand, and this is something I think where I begin to overwhelm people, because it's not just about compassion. Compassion is really, really important, but it's about financing, zoning, construction, property management, compliance, and all of that really matters. Do you have somebody on your team, or can you find somebody who can help you through that? I personally, I've been a real estate appraiser for many years, so I knew a lot of this, but I'm not a finance person. I'm not a CFO. So fortunately, I had somebody that was able to step into that role. And so all the different roles that are necessary, you have to make sure that somebody's able to fill those before you even begin any of this.
Yep. Yeah, your background in real estate and appraisal and construction and development really shaped what was possible.
Yeah, it helped us understand what we financially realistic, what would appraise, what lenders would accept, and what cities would approve. So that's really what was difficult, because I think people don't understand zoning. That was a big part of it, too. What does zoning look like? Do you have an engineer that can put a plan together? You know, what did all of that look like? So the more you understand about all of that, the easier that you're going to be able to go through this process.
Well, the other thing is your leadership and organizational education played into that, too. And the piece that people miss or they don't know about you is that when you did your master's, you really did it based upon what you wanted the emergency shelter to look like, what your idea was. And so by the time you finished school, that had been torn apart, and and just everybody had all these reasons why it wouldn't work. And so you got your master's. That was your thesis. Those are key components that have helped us be so successful is to have the education.
Yeah, and once you start building housing, here's the other part. It's not that. Sometimes it's not as hard to build housing. It was for us because nobody wanted to give us any money. They were like, you're doing what? That sounds cool. We don't want to pay for it, though.
Yeah.
You do it, and then you let us know how that's going to work. But you're not just running programs. You're running assets and long-term operations. So that's why it's important that you have an established organization that understands how to run those assets and understanding it's long-term. It's not just this big thing you want to do, and then you die, and then that's the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the biggest misconceptions is that housing projects start with big federal grants.
Yeah, and honestly, they usually don't. Early projects are almost always funded locally, and that's how the Oak Harbor Cottages came about, was we were funded locally.
Yep.
I think all of the money came from local people.
Yeah, it did. So we had churches and donors and small businesses and city partnerships that we could not have done it without them. Now, we did have one foundation that really gave us money to get us started. Kind of like that first donation where your mom came running down the hall, grabbing her chest, and we thought she was having a heart attack.
I know, right?
And it was like, nope, this is just the seed money to let you believe that it's possible.
Yeah, and it was also, we got a lot of in-kind support, which was donated labor, donated materials, volunteer hours. That's how pilot projects get built. So if you're in a community somewhere and you're like, where am I going to find this money? Start locally, because once you get a reputation as somebody that knows what they're doing, then other people jump on the bandwagon and they will help you to move that forward. That's really important. But you're going to have to do a little bit of running around, talking to people. I don't always like asking for money, but I can't write a check for this. And most people aren't going to because they thought we were crazy anyways.
Yeah. But what we've done also has built our credibility. People now know that when those crazy ladies say they're going to do something, you better stand back, because
I know.
Somehow we're going to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, and when people see something actually working, it becomes much easier to attract larger funding later. And I think that's true for us, that we've been able to get larger and larger grants because people think, oh my gosh, this is working. From homelessness to home ownership and everything in between is not just a saying, this is working.
Yeah. Yeah. We proved that the model we wanted to do could work. And so now people have seen that, and they're coming to us from all over, wanting to know, how did you do this? So here we go. This is the reason for today's podcast.
Right. And then public speaking, community support, that is huge. And I think we've talked about that a lot in just about everything we do. You have to talk about the need. And a lot of people in your community, especially middle-class people and people with even more means than that, they don't even know that there's a problem because they don't see it. And so you have to start talking about it so people can see that there is a great need in your community, and here's the solution.
Yeah, and it's not just about the data. People always want to know, well, how many people are there homeless in McPherson County? Okay, well, if it's one, it's too many. We spent a lot of time speaking at churches and civic groups and community events about why we needed to do this.
And I think we told a lot of real stories. We're very careful. So we don't like to parade people around. It just bothers me a lot to parade somebody around, especially when they're in probably some of the most trauma that they've ever experienced. I'm going to be careful with that. But we did tell stories about families, even though they were anonymous, and maybe the way we're doing it isn't as powerful. But it was important that people knew these are real people. We're not making this up. This is really happening, and we're having a lot of success. And here's the success that our families have seen. So it has to become personal and not political. We have to get that political part out.
Yeah. And that's how you build the donors, the volunteers, and the advocates. When people can realize that the story you're telling them has a human face behind it, and this is really somebody's life right now and what they're living. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that people would start to cry when we were talking to them to let them know the personal stories that go along with what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and housing projects need community champions. I felt like we had a lot of champions out there, people out there who were really walking beside us. I mean, when we built the Oak Harbor Cottages, we could not find any federal funding. There was no state funding. People honestly thought that we had lost our minds. I mean, what you're doing has never been done before. Why would we give you our money to try to do something that we don't even know that's going to work? Not understanding that we had a really clear plan and a really good, everything was our marketing, our funding, we had it all worked out, but they just couldn't see it. And I guess when it's not your vision, sometimes it makes it more difficult. But we need champions to help walk beside us. We had one person per house. We had 10 houses who was willing to be the person on that house and make sure that it got finished.
Yeah.
Those are champions, people that were out in the community talking in a positive way about what we were doing. One of the things, I got to the point where I laughed on Facebook because we have this thing called Public Right to Know, and people on there are mean. My dad and I used to sit at the table when he was living with us, and he would say, "Hey, let's read Public Right to Know. It's hilarious." So it's hilarious until it's about you, right?
Yeah.
And that's not so hilarious. So anyway, so somebody was on there and they tried to say, somebody said, "Well, I know this isn't a popular thing, but this is blah, blah, blah." And everybody was attacking the person. So I'm cracking up because it became to the point where people were afraid to say negative things. Unless they saw me by myself in the street and wanted to yell at me in private, which happened a couple times. But for the most part, our community stepped up with everything that we could imagine to make this happen.
Well, and even the person that was screaming at you from the street when we wanted to do Sutherland Estates, then she actually came to the meeting and said, "Let them do this. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Let them do it."
Yeah.
So eventually, when projects start working, they start to get noticed.
Yeah, city leaders, they start paying attention. And in our case, they did help us. I feel like they were somewhat, they were part of it.
Yeah.
And I worked really closely with the zoning administrator at the time, and he was kind of on me all the time, but he's like, we have to do this right, because then when people are watching, there was some people who wanted to stop the project for personal reasons. And he's like, okay, we have to do this right. And so I appreciated that. Even though he drives me a little crazy, he was really looking out for our best interests. So I really appreciated that the zoning administrator was doing that. And that's a champion, anybody that was helping us and working alongside us. So that was really cool. But state agency, again, they didn't want to help us at all. They thought it was cool. And then it's funny, right after we got it done, they invited us to come speak at their conference. I was like, oh, okay. And I feel like we have a good relationship with them now. And they do help. They've never given us money at the state level to build. We always have to look for federal money or other money.
Yeah.
But they always give us money for running the programs.
Yeah.
So that's really important.
That is important.
That is important.
Yeah. Yeah. Running the programs is almost as important as getting the housing built.
Yeah.
And, when HUD came to our groundbreaking for Sutherland Estates, because we got federal money for that, it was really funny because Deke Claiborne asked us, "How much money did we give you to build the emergency shelter?" And we got to say nothing.
Yeah.
But what they saw changed everything. So now the funding is there, the regulations, the scale, the responsibility, that's all there to make it available for somebody else to do what we've done.
Yeah, so now we're not just a local pilot project anymore. People from across the country are watching what we're doing and starting to use our model. They're not. It's not exactly the same because every community has to do things a little differently, but they're starting to see the model and going, "Oh, wow, this actually works. If you do this, this, and this, it actually works." Anyway, so we're really excited. In our next episode, we're going to talk about what happens when housing projects move into the next phase, working with local, state, and federal partners, and how developments like Sutherland Estates and the Oak Harbor Cottages become long-term housing solutions. What does that look like? So we hope we gave you kind of a basic understanding from getting the organization set up, making sure you have relationships, making sure that you can figure out where to fund the project. All of those things need to happen.
Yep, absolutely. Because building housing is one thing. But building housing that lasts is a whole different challenge.
And that's what we'll talk about next time. So I'm excited about our next episode.
Me too. So that is our episode of Housing for Good. If you would be interested in being on Housing for Good, or you know somebody that would be an excellent guest for us to talk with, Please leave a review, drop us a line. Let us know about that at housingforgood@mcphersonhc.org.
Have a great day.